Hi, John. So, what have you been up to this week? What have you been doing?
Well, I've been up to a few things, Daniel. We had a bit of a gale, so I couldn't mess about in boats at the weekend. So I was building model boats. So I just hold this fellow up for you. I've been building the Will Everard, which is, I'm not sure whether it will come out very well on here, but no, it's, there we go.
Oh, wow.
So I've been building one of those ones out of effectively bits of balsa wood and all that kind of stuff, but it's a lovely little ship. I've been on that one on and off for about a year now, so
Oh, wow.
it only
Cool.
comes out on rainy day. But yeah, the weekend was a bit of a blowout, so yeah, spent most of it indoors and obviously working the same as you during the week. What have you been up to then?
Well, yeah, not too much. I had a bit of an issue at the weekend with spiders. So I'm not big on spiders, and it seems ever since it's gotten a little bit colder, they've all gone, hang on a minute, let's go inside. It's nice and warm in there. And yeah, I was in the
I've got a story about that on the BBC. Have you seen the BBC web pages about it?
No, what's that? What's going on?
Spiders that are running about are randy male spiders because it's the time of year for them to breed, and they're hunting females, and the females are a little bit more housebound, shall we say, and the male spiders are out looking for them, so that's why they'll take risks. So they're not bothered about coming out in daylight, they're not worried about humans, anything.
I see.
I was just going to say, my wife always puts conkers in little balls down on the floor. Whether this is an old wives' tale, but we're told that spiders don't like them for some strange reason. So we have little balls of conkers in the rooms at this time of year.
Okay, I'll get some conkers then, just to be on the safe side, because I don't want to squish them or anything like that, but just when you're calmly having a bath or sitting down, and then you just see this thing come down, and it's a mixture of, I think they're cardinal spiders, which are the big, one of them was sort of too big to get a pint glass over, so I just thought, I'm not dealing with that. I scream like Ned Flanders, the high pitched I let it out, why not? And the other ones are the false widows, so they're the sort of Britain's most venomous spider, but the sort of big, shiny, black ones.
My PhD student, Carolyn, she lives in RAF digs, and they had to leave the barracks because they were overrun with false widows. A couple of people were bitten, and by all accounts, it's not as bad as people make out, but apparently it blooming well hurts. So if you pick one up, put it out or something, and it nips you on the finger, a bit like, a stinging nettle crossed with a gnat bite, it's supposed to be blooming painful. Some people have reactions to them, but yeah, there's lots of them there, isn't there?
Well, hopefully I don't plan on finding out whether I do. I just need to shoo them out and call someone in to deal with them, because I'm too chicken.
Just like you've got your little ant colony on the bathroom window inside there, I don't have any problems with flies in the bathroom, because those little wooden lighthouses that you get from the cheap shops. You know the ones I mean? They've got 3 little holes in them. The spider that's taken up residence in the lighthouse, and it will sit there watching you. You can see it from the second window, and it started off this tiny little thing that was spinning these tiny webs, and now it's sort of the elk that you're talking about, where the glass won't fit over the top of it. But it's got its own little house in there, and I think it's great. I just dust its cobwebs down and take the old flies away occasionally. It doesn't seem to mind. It's perfectly happy.
They do have their uses, I guess. I guess I should keep them around, learn to live with them. But there we go. Anyway, so we've kind of done a bit of a ramble, which is kind of what we want to achieve with this RambleCast, which is a more sort of relaxed, conversational, just check in with people and see what people are up to and what people think. So I think I think we've done just that. And I'd like to bring in here our head of school, Professor Anthony Vickers, who's agreed to join us as a guest. And he was gonna, if we ask him, Anthony, what have you been up to? Have you been up to anything this week?
Well, this week, putting some new felt back on one of my sheds, which blew off in the weekend gale that John referred to, which turned out to be this very early this morning at 7 to 7:30 this morning, trying to get it all back on before work, and ended up ruining a shirt with black gooey stuff. But there you go. That's that was a minor thing. But over the long period since March, it seems some ways only yesterday, but in other ways a long time ago. Been doing all sorts of things. I built a new workshop at home, which I'm very pleased about. Did that over Easter when we had a week off, and attached it to the back of my garage with a big, it's a 5 meters by 2 meters. So John knows some of that because he helped me with some of the errors I made with putting flashing on. So to try and make it watertight, I finally got it watertight. That was good. I had bought a boat at the start of lockdown and worked on that a little bit. Got it afloat, did some sailing, which was nice in the summer. And there's not many opportunities, but enough to feel like used it. But the biggest thing is really weight loss. Decided that I would do something about my weight, which those of you might remember my size from first year, when you were in your first year. Those of you on the call here, I'll give you a little bit of a reminder, actually, because if I stop the video just for a second, try and place my head somewhere roughly there, then you'll see what I was and then what I am now. So I've lost 5.5 stone in weight.
Wow.
I'm a lot fitter than I was, and I visibly in all sorts of ways, dinghy sailing on the yacht, going hiking, everything is just so much better. So I've used the lockdown as a personal decision to try and get that kind of health thing back in order.
Wow.
I'm not getting younger, as they say, so it was probably a good time to do it. So I'm really pleased with that. I've got maybe just over 0.5 stone more I want to lose, and then I'll be quite comfortable. So that's been really, and I've changed my eating habits, and actually lockdown's been good for that because I'm in complete control of my diet, absolute control. So I just, what I buy and what I make is what I eat. A little bit of going out over the summer, but not much. So that was a good time to do it, I felt. I mean, I know some people say that they've increased weight over lockdown, but I've quite dramatically done the opposite. So good, feeling fitter, ready for the term.
No, that's great. And it's almost like I know what you mean when you say about control, because if you've got, say if you've got 4 or 5 birthdays coming up over the next couple of months, and you're going to be going out for this and out for that, it's kind of hard to say I will only stick to these types of foods or under this amount of calories. But it's when when you're at home, or you're going to have no temptation of I mean, did you have a particular guilty pleasure, maybe on campus or off campus? Like, was there a quick?
Well, when I was going on to work, I'd sometimes go into the cafe in the morning and have a breakfast because it wasn't expensive. I'd get so using the cafes a lot, and quite frankly, quite a lot of the cafe food on campus, is a bit calorific. It's not entirely. I mean, I know you can look for the healthy options, but there's those great big sort of unhealthy things looking at you. So if I was to give a piece of advice to students, not don't use the campus facilities, but when you shop, just buy the things that are not in packages mainly. So buy fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, fresh meat, and dairy products, and you can't go far wrong. And then learn. I have always really enjoyed cooking, but I've really learned that joy. And again, lockdown helps, because even at lunchtime today, I just put to the side the various things that I knew I was going to need for the meal tonight. So I've got them all, and later when I have a coffee break, I might go and find the chicken and put that, so I take the time to make it so that when I cook the meal later on, I'll enjoy it. I'll put some music on, I'll make the meal, and I'll enjoy it. Whereas before, it was back from work, usually, especially in winter, harassed, it's dark, maybe it's raining, you're fed up, you call the takeaway rather than getting all that stuff out of the cupboard. So I think planning, everybody will say, oh, Anthony's always talking about planning. But planning is really important when you're trying to actually, let's say, break habits that are long-term in terms of bad eating habits. So I think I've broken them now. I've vowed that I would not eat chocolate again. I would not eat biscuits again. And I've kept to that because they are just, they just ruin you. A packet of biscuits can be eaten really easily. And then that's more calories than you should have had in the whole day. So
No, absolutely.
When I'm released, I'll have to watch it.
With I just wonder, John, do you have any you know, not saying you're, you know, master chef or anything, but do you have a sort of a favorite meal or a go-to meal that's kind of like a healthy, you know, like a nice, you know, thing that you like to make or you like to eat, if not make, you know?
I mean, as the viewers know from last week, you, I, and Vishu are vegetarians. I mean, it's for me, it's not about conscience. I just don't really like meat very much. So I guess my favourite has to be salad and any fish, fish, tuna fish, or some pilchards or something like that. That's probably one of my favourite meals. I do like a vegetarian curry. I can turn a pretty mean bowl of couscous and vegetables as well. But I suppose the favourite of all has to be a fish pie. So you know, down to the seafront, buy yourself a piece of cod or some whiting or something like that. Bring it back, souse it in vinegar so you don't get any bones in it, and then cook it up. Make some nice potato on the top there, and bit of cheese, and then chuck it in the oven and brown it right off. It's absolutely lovely. Well, I'm hungry now. I wasn't hungry before that.
Yeah.
That's Anthony, you see. She's talking about food for the last 5 minutes, and my stomach started rumbling. But yeah, that's about my culinary limit, I'm afraid. Risotto is another thing I cook quite often because it's about the only thing I make that my children will eat. So I'm not too bad at that either.
Yeah, I've always
What's
wanted to. I've always wanted to try making risotto, but I've never, because it's a bit different. I've never, you know, looked into it or plucked up the courage. I don't know. I eat anything. Well, no, I don't eat that much. I eat. I'm big on leafy greens. I like a good spinach, a good kale. My favorite is kale chips, actually. So, like Anthony says about just having something to eat. I'm a grazer. You know, I sort of pick at things and you know, constantly have something on. And one of the cool things to do is get shredded kale just from a bag. You put it in a baking tray or whatever. You toss it with oil. You toss it with salt, and then you just roast it. And you roast it not until it goes black, which I learned the first time. Set the fire alarm off. But you roast it until it just they become solid. And because they're sort of fry themselves, it just tastes like, I don't know, they do taste like crisps. You can have a bowl of them and they sort of go solid and crunchy. So yeah, kale chips, make your own DIY ATP bag from all good retailers, and just yeah, bung it in the oven about 10 minutes or so. So that's probably a good snack for me. But yeah, anyway,
I must
just
admit, I forgot the cabbage then.
you forgot
I
the
forgot the cabbage. I remember being forced to eat cabbage at primary school, and you know, actually feeling physically sick in doing so. But now I can think of nothing nicer than a plateful of hot cabbage with vinegar on the top of it. Absolutely delicious. Funny how
nice.
your taste buds change over time, isn't it?
Yeah, no, what I do with
Anyway,
cabbage. I've got one last
Well,
cabbage tip.
then,
Sorry, John. I've got to crowbar this in somewhere. If you get a new cabbage, you cut about an inch off the bottom, so you get the usable cabbage head. Then if you turn that so it's sort of what would have been the root, and you just put it outside, in the spring and summer they'll grow, so you can get a brand new cabbage plant out of it. But yeah, so in case you want to have a go at that.
well, it's all happening on this station, isn't it? I did not know that.
There we go. Right. Well, I think we've got some student guests as well. So we've got Nathan, Hamsini, and Joseph, who are our Year 2 SU representatives, like cohort representatives. And I just want to ask them, or we wanted to ask them a few questions about their welcome experience and if they've got any tips for Year 1. So I don't know if you all want to introduce yourselves individually. We go first. Who wants to go first?
Hi, I'm Nathan. I'm a second year course rep and department lead rep.
Hi, I'm Hamsini. I'm a student rep and a peer mentor.
I'm Joe Nixon, and I'm also a student rep and peer mentor.
Cool, nice one. So I think I was there for your Year 1 lecture, induction, and whole welcome process last year. I mean, what are the real, obviously this year for anyone doing Year 1 processes, you know, going through the Year 1 induction process this year, it'll be slightly different. But what were the big takeaways from sort of welcome and when you first got here? I don't know if Nathan, you got any thoughts or anyone else?
Yeah, it's a lot of information to take in, but just try and take as much of it in as you can because it's usually always useful. In regards to like student experience and things like that, is you hear it a lot, but joining as many societies and things as you can is always a good idea, especially with you get free trials and things, so it doesn't hurt to try it, especially when you know you may be more isolated than normal at this point. So you know, engaging as much as possible is a good idea.
Cool, nice. I don't know, Hamsini, do you have any like recollections or any sort of tips or anything for year one?
I'd say that I don't recommend buying books immediately and trying to use the library. I'm not saying don't use books, but try use library, or now there's the online library due to COVID, which will really help. So you just save money and spend it on better stuff.
No, it's good
Yeah,
point.
Daniel, if I could just come in on that, I think that's very sound advice, actually. Before you buy a book, you should always try before you buy. So even if you can't get it directly from the library, you can get it from an interlibrary loan. So if there is a recommended book and you're not sure, I mean, books aren't cheap. You can easily pay £45, £50 for a textbook, and you want to get some value out of that. I'm still using the same textbooks I had 25, 30 years ago. Particularly a maths book that I bought when I was in my early 20s that I still use now, and also a statistics book that I bought around about the same time. And I remember I didn't get a lot of change out of £100 when I bought those. So yes, very good advice. Think very carefully before you spend all of your hard-earned on the books. And also what you need to be aware of is just because a text is recommended for a particular course doesn't mean to say that you have to have it. It's just, you know, if you want to, go and look it up, and if you really want to, buy it, but it doesn't mean that you have to. So just be clear about that.
Yeah, Anthony, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I'd just say the same. I mean, learning is very, very personal, and although we work hard to decide what a recommended text is, every student will look at different material and say, actually, I get it from that. I was the same when I was a student, and like John, there are some books that I bought as a student that I still have, goodness knows, 40 years later, and I still have my maths notes from my second year engineering maths module, because we had to handwrite all our notes in those days because you didn't get any handouts, and I've still got those, and they're still useful. I think I haven't done a sort of Fourier transform for a bit. I'll go back and page into the book, and because I wrote it, I still actually get it, because I didn't copy. You know, you'd never copy ad lib. But those of you who are note takers in lectures and things, which some students still are, and I think it's a good habit to have, then it's the way your mind's working. So if you write it down, when you read it later, you think, yeah, I still get that. And I tell you, that's true 40 years later. You still think, yeah, that makes sense to me. And somebody else might read and think, what's that? Why did that step get missed? So, you know, personalized books, but also, you know, your own notes. It's always really valuable to write something down in your, and if you write it down, you probably understand it. That's my little piece of you know, view on the matter.
Yeah, that's a nice observation, Anthony. And with my students, I quite often have the conversation, because students maybe think that lecturers know absolutely everything. Well, I suppose we do know quite a bit about certain things. But for example, on mathematics, I love maths, so I follow what's going on in mathematics quite strongly. But there's many of the techniques which I learned during my A-levels, I can't remember how to do it. I don't think anyone can remember how to do them unless they do them on a daily basis. But when we get now coming back to books, this is the magic of the book. As soon as I need to do, for example, integration and differentiation by parts or whatever, I just can't remember how to do it off the top of my head, but I can remember the page number where I need to go to do it. More often than not, there you are with this massive, great math book with about 500 pages, and all there are is 5 or 6 very worn pages with the corners folded over that are all dirty because you didn't wash your hands properly when you were doing with all pencil written over them and everything. And that's how you understand things. It really is. Anthony.
Yeah, I just wondered what the students thought on this. I'm just curious to know how they, choose books, make notes, decide that they understand something. It'd be just interesting to know from a current generation how it works now, because obviously things have changed a little bit, but I'm not sure the human brain's changed too much, but I'd be curious to know how the three of them deal with this matter of learning.
Joseph, do you have an opinion on that?
So basically, I just after the lecture, I spend maybe like 10 or so minutes just to make sure I've got everything that I need written down, just everything that just to get the main points solidified first. Then usually when I have a free time, usually the next day I just revisit the same notes, and then if I still get it, then that's good, and then I leave it for another couple of days, and then I revisit it again, and then it just is reinforcement learning. So yeah.
No, that's useful, because it's you're kind of letting it embed, aren't you, if you do it in sort of iterations. Yeah. Hamsini, do you have any?
So during the lecture, like, it's quite fast paced, so it's quite hard to get all the information down that you require. After that, you would go back on listen again, and I would listen to it. After writing down some notes, I'd create questions to answer the notes. So when I came to answering them, like for my exam, I'd read the questions and I'd try answering them, and the notes would basically answer it. So that's a good way of helping me in my exam.
Yeah.
John?
Can I? Yeah, thank you. Can I just ask a question about the way in which people learn? Because relating my own personal experience, when I was in first year of degree, my main method of learning was really memorizing. I would just see the notes, I would try to memorize everything, and then I'd go into the exam and obviously pass the exams, otherwise I wouldn't be here now. But what I found is as I went on through the 3 years, that technique just completely faded into the distance. So that by the time I got to the final year, I didn't try to memorize anything because there was absolutely no need. I kind of got the point of the whole thing. The point of the whole thing was to understand it rather than try to regurgitate it. How do you feel on that? Is that your own experience, or are you? What sort of percentage would you say you apply to memorizing versus trying to intricately understand it? Where would you lie on that?
Well,
Nathan, do you want to take that one? Or anyone?
well, like a lot of exams now aren't like memorizable and just go and write it. It's all application based. So more than just learning from your lecture, that will be memorizing. Try reading books, internet, just widening just a little bit, not too much, on your knowledge on the wider spectrum.
I think it's also, computer science is quite a code-based subject as well. So you need to, so it's not just enough to memorize what things do, but you need to understand why it does that, why this line of code will work there and this it won't work in another place. And once you really start to understand it, you become more fluent to the knowledge, and then yeah, you don't really need to memorize it.
So it's more understanding how they work together rather than memorizing them as a list of things. So you don't need to, it's a bit like the periodic table of the elements. Like that periodic table exists, so you don't need to memorize it. You can memorize it, but you'll always have it as reference. But if you understand why, how the different properties interact with each other and how the different elements, the relationships between them, once you apply what the knowledge is that's summarized, that's kind of what you get. You know, that's, like you say, really similar to computer science, because that's the sort of approach you can take with that.
You can memorise it, Daniel. You know the song? Have you heard the song from the periodic table?
I haven't heard the song, but we haven't had a singing performance on this yet. So take it away.
No, I don't know off the top of my head. I'll do a song for you next week on the banjo if you like. I can,
Okay, yeah.
I'll
No,
muster something for that.
I'll settle for that. But no, it's interesting, like, because we are, as humans, we're at a point almost where, you know, we've got the sum of all human knowledge in a smartphone in everyone's pocket. And so what do you really need to learn when you've got that at your fingertips? Well, how to use it and how to apply what you look up. So yeah, Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think knowledge is very accessible, and that can make you a little lazy. And I'll give you an example of where it doesn't work. I mean, in the main, it works for us. But if you're a doctor or if you're a lawyer, you often have to have those skills of memory retention, because you've got to remember something so you can react sharply and quickly in a courtroom. You know, I have my brother-in-law, and he was a lawyer. He's retired now. But he was just fantastic at school, you know, kings and queens, but his memory function was fantastic. And in the courtroom, he didn't have to flurry through books. He just, you know, if he'd done a case, he would have in his head the various things that he'd be able to say, and he'd draw on that as the UK law is case law based. And he could just draw on an enormous amount. So that's really, really bad. Now, they are moving towards AI systems, finding that for you, bringing it up on the screen. But that memory gain in some jobs, a doctor, you don't want a doctor to think, hold on, I'll just go and look in a book. I think I remember how to do that. You know, I think some of the capacity they have is to retain a lot of information, to memorize a lot. Clearly, they've got to try and diagnose, and they've got to do some analysis and things as well. But as John said, if we've forgotten how to do a particular type of numerical analysis, then we've got the time to go and look it up and think about it and get it correct and remind ourselves. But in some situations, that's not true. You've got to act quickly, and you've got to be able to act quickly. Sometimes people use that as a measure of the only measure of ability, and it's not true. So ability to act quick can be useful, but it isn't true of all things. And sometimes acting quickly can be hastily, and then not the most appropriate solution. So you have to be careful of that as well. But I mean, one of the things I was going to touch on as well is one of the words you must never use when you write a learning outcome, and I'll ask our students to look for some because they'll find them in our learning outcomes, is understand. You should never use the word understand, because actually it's a very personal thing. I can say I understand, but you have to take that on face value. It's very hard for you to know whether I understand. Now, of course, you can probe a little bit. Do you have so normally in engineering, we think of learning outcomes as being, we used to call them the A2 statements, the ability to. Very functionally, the ability to integrate, you know, the ability to design a bridge. But if you ever say students should have the ability to understand or be able to understand, then I would always say to somebody, what do you mean? So I can never really know whether ever any of the students here or any of the students I've taught over the last nearly 40 years really understand. I get an indication that they seem to be on the right track. And even if you say, I understand, it has it has a deep meaning, the word, which is very difficult to unpick. I just thought I'd throw that little bit of philosophy in at this stage.
Yeah, what did you think of that, John, then, as that sort of area? What would you reckon?
Well, yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I would agree with everything that you said there. Something that was on my mind is really, I wanted to take us back to your original question, which was about you know, coming into university, going through freshers, going through the first weeks and so on. My own personal experience from university is I nearly left at the first Christmas because I found that first term almost unsurmountable. I found it really, really hard because it was all fundamentally new stuff to me relative to what I'd learned before. But my experience through the 3 years for the first degree was it just got easier and easier and easier. And I wonder if I could just throw that over to the students that, in their experience so far coming through the university, when has been their toughest time? Any one of you, if you'd like to take that on.
Yeah, when it first started, when you first begin, there's a lot of information that you suddenly got to try and sort of cram through. You've got all the introductory information from the various modules, and that can be quite a sort of tough period when you're very new to the whole experience and trying to read through all this information. But once you've got through that initial bulk, it tends to settle out quite a bit, and only really sort of picks back up in sort of early January when if you switch over modules, and then you do the same process again of suddenly having all this new information. And for me, that was always the hardest part, is when you start a new sort of term or a new batch of modules and you have all the supporting information to read through to begin with, to make sure that you have the entry level understanding is always the part, but it always kind of settles out after that. So the rest of the term usually ends up being kind of okay usually.
That's really interesting. Are there any other students want to jump in on that at all? Because I find it an interesting point anyway, but we're always looking for better ways to sort of introduce students more gradually or less gradually. Sometimes, immersion works as better as, as good as sort of increments, but yeah, just trying to get people inducted sort of in the best way for them. That segue kind of leads nicely into what I've actually not shared this with anyone in our pre-meeting, so we're just gonna have a pop quiz, if you don't mind. As a sort of non-student, non-academic, I'm exempt obviously, and we'll find a quizmaster hat that I can put on at some point when we do this in the future. But if we do staff versus students, I think that could be quite fun.
We're in trouble, Ed.
Well, we'll see. So feel free to unmute, because of the highly low budget. We don't have any buzzers. So if you're on the student team, if you buzz in with the word beep, and if you're on the staff team, if you buzz in with the word boop, I'll just go by which robot sound I hear first, and then I'll make a call, make a judgment. So it's not very long. It's only
I've
go
just
for
got
it,
to
John.
open Google. I've just got to open Google. Just bear with me.
I'm afraid it's not open book, and even if it was, it'd be quite difficult to find. But there we go. So beep for the students, boop for the staff, and it's only 3 questions, but it's to try and see how much after however many years here, 1 year for the students, quite a few more years for the staff, how much you know about Essex and the campus. So here we go. What is the Essex University motto?
Boop.
John Woods.
Thought the harder, heart the keener.
Correct.
Thought the harder, heart the keener.
Correct. Well done. So that's 2. That's you 2 have 1 point. Brilliant. So staff are in the lead. Come on, students, you really got to jump in there as soon as you know. Okay. Who was the first Vice Chancellor of Essex University?
Boop.
Oh, Anthony Vickers.
Sir Albert Sloman.
Correct. Well
I
done.
knew him. I have known every Vice Chancellor of the University of Essex.
Well done. Amazing.
Roll now, Anthony.
That is.
2 points.
2 points. Okay, so if you could make this 3 for 3, I'll be impressed. So currently there are 6 towers, 4 in the North Towers and 2 South Towers. How many towers were originally planned for the Essex Uni campus?
Boop.
Yeah, Anthony Vickers.
Is it going to be an exact number?
I'll take a guess from both teams, and then we'll see who's closest. So
I'm
Anthony,
going to guess 22.
22. Well, should we do a higher or lower? So you can confer between Hamsini, Joseph, Nathan. What do you reckon? Higher or lower than 22?
I remember. I know there's a model of it sitting in the hex, but I can't remember how many towers there actually was planned.
Oh no.
I think it's lower than that, personally.
I think it's lower.
Yeah.
You think it's lower? Do you have a rough number that you've got in mind, or just lower?
I think my mind's saying somewhere around. I think it was more around 12, like sort of a low double digits.
I was going to say 13.
Lucky
That
for
would have
some.
been a good number.
Yeah, there are. I mean, they're quite big towers, so yeah, we'll see. But I'm afraid Anthony's won this one, as there were originally planned to be 29 towers.
Oh,
So there we go. So I'm afraid it would have been higher than 22.
Wow.
But
I actually thought it was 20, so I thought I'd left you scope to beat me there. But 29, yeah, even I'm impressed. Can you imagine it? What hell it would have been?
Yeah.
I mean, how wonderful it would have been if you're into that brutalist architecture mid-century. But not everyone is, I
I don't
guess.
mind the ones that are there, especially as the brick. Did you know that they were, for a while, the tallest brick building in, I think, even possibly Europe?
Oh wow.
was Europe, yeah. Momentarily, it was the world, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It didn't
No, I
last.
didn't know. The only the only interesting fact I've got is one of them's the Bertrand Russell Tower, isn't it? So my only interesting fact is that my philosophy teacher shared a police van with Bertrand Russell, because they went to the same CND protest back in the 60s. But there we go.
Good
So
old CND rallies.
Taught by the best. There we go. There we go. So brilliant. So that's 3 for 3, staff. Well done for Team Boop. Team Beep, we'll see next time. You know, we'll see how it goes. But lastly, I just want to sort of bring us on to workstations or like work environments, because like Anthony said, we've had 6 months to get used to sort of working and learning from home, teaching from home for some of us, assessing from home, marking from home, you know, taking up different hobbies. I've always got a setup, you know, if I'm digitizing videotapes or if I'm scanning microfiche or if I'm typing something or if I'm repotting something, I'll always have it sort of spread around like some sort of big, you know, multi-layered thing, normally with a laptop balanced precariously on some sort of cookbook. But I just wondered if people have different workstations or workshops, or you know, work in different areas, or have any thoughts on how to improve. Like my big thing is lights. I like lots of lights and lots of, you know, if I'm working on something, I'll fiddle with the light to make sure it's as bright as possible, or you know, change bulbs around. So that's my preference. Does anyone else have a preference at all, or anything to say about that? Yeah, Nathan?
Yeah, my only preference that I have to have in my personal setup is always I have to have at least 2 monitors, whatever I'm doing. Because I was lucky enough that in my sixth form we had a 2 monitor setup, and ever since then I've been unable to like properly be productive with only just one. Like I need to be able to have it somewhere else to put more information, or even just like my Spotify or something. Like having one is just not enough for me. Like working on a laptop I find quite difficult just because I don't have enough real estate for everything.
No, good. I have so I use the Windows key to snap windows if I'm, because I've only got my laptop at the moment. If I have a secondary screen, I'll use that. But I sometimes find I've got 2 spreadsheets open, but then I bisect horizontally as well. So I'll only be using a quarter of the screen at a time and comparing different things. So I'm jealous of your multi-screen setup, wherever you've got it. Does anyone else want to chip in? Hamsini, yeah?
Well, I like using whiteboards or colors. So I think so I don't get bored, just different ways of learning. So sometimes drawing it out where possible, say diagrams, or adding colors, say different headings, just changing things up. And having speakers. Music needs to be playing all the time. But it has to be a different language to what I'm writing in.
Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, that's really
Otherwise, I
interesting.
write it the same time.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, I find that I often need to listen to something, because I sometimes listen to podcasts, but listening to podcasts and then writing something, you're liable to, you know, I might start writing about the politics I'm listening to, or if it's, you know, put a song lyric in there or something by accident. Yeah, you can get confused. What about you, John?
Well, I think Nathan wants to come in there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just I had to comment to add on the music thing. As I do the same things. I can't listen to regular music when I'm studying because I do the same thing. I end up writing whatever I'm doing, or I lose focus because I'm listening. So what I end up doing is listening to like the lo-fi music doesn't have any lyrics in it, because then I can still have something going in the background to keep my mind occupied, but without having to write anything down because nothing's being said.
Ah, good, smart. It's a smart one. Nice.
Yeah, my train of thought, Daniel, I'm the same as everyone that's said so far. If I sit there and I listen to, I quite like rock music and rock and roll and all that kind of stuff, and blues, but if I listen to that, I'll end up writing the lyrics down or typing the lyrics without even thinking about what I'm doing. I just can't do it. I can't listen to music and work at the same time. My brain can only do one thing at a time very well, I'm afraid. Anthony, you want to do?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I can't have anything else on, and in fact, where I'm sat here is a desk with a computer on it, because I tried being really, I thought, oh, I'm at home, I can just sit with an iPad on the sofa or something, but it's like I need to feel like I'm in the office. So I've this desk at the back of our front room, and those of you who've been talking to me through the lockdown will know that back there is still the mandolin, still untouched, and still unable to play a song. It's like a kind of, I leave it there, and I keep thinking, one day I'll manage to do that, but I can't find the time. But as I said earlier, what I did do is build a workshop, and partly the workshop, I thought, oh, well, I'll use that as the office. Actually, it's not. It's only a fairly sort of primitive workshop, so it gets quite cold, and I suspect that very soon it's going to be so cold I really would not want to work in there. So I don't think I'm going to be doing much work in there. But let me, if you'll indulge me, I'll just share my screen and show you the workshop at an early stage of development over the Easter. This is when it was being built. So let me see if this will work. So there you go. So wow. I built it with one end missing, so that I could kind of go in and out and build it and then I put this end on, boarded it and everything, and then broke through. This is a garage here, broke through with a new doorway into this. So this is now completely finished. Maybe a later RambleCast, I'll RambleCast from it so I can show it. But I'm rather pleased with this. It's quite primitive, but you know, it's not bad, and it gets all of my stuff now into one place where I can, you know, fiddle with. I've got my latest project. I'll stop the share now. My latest project is to try and my washing machine stopped working, and it came up with error code F21. So of course I googled that, and it's brushes on the motor. So then I googled YouTube and find out how you get hold of the motor. So the washing machine is now. The motor is off the washing machine, the brushes are out, and certainly the brushes, I don't know if you've ever looked at carbon brushes off a washing machine. Well, they're like, they really are tiny. They should be like as long as pencils, they're tiny. So I've ordered a new pair for £5. So this week, my challenge is, can I get the washing machine back working again with an investment of some of my time, but only £5 spent? And I'd be really chuffed if that's the case. And even on YouTube, YouTube is great, isn't it? I'm a very visual learner, so if I need to do anything practically, I always look for a YouTube video. And there's a really good video of how to take the brushes out, and I've done that. And even the trick you have to play, the engineering trick you have to play, you have to turn the dial to a certain place, press a button for a certain length of time. Whilst you're doing that, press the button again. That clears the error code. That sort of stuff is really great that you can find that now, because nobody would ever tell you that in the past. But an engineer knew that, you know, if you like, backdoor to reset the error coding. So I'll report next time whether I actually managed to get the washing machine operational with only an outlay of £5. I'll be really chuffed.
Amazing. So we've seen your workshop or mid-process, and you know you're finalising it now. John, have you? I hear you've got quite an impressive workshop yourself that you broadcast from.
Yeah, well, mine's sort of full of model aeroplanes. It's one of my vices, I'm afraid, boats and aeroplanes. I'll just turn off the background. You can have a little look around if you want.
Yeah, take the virtual background off, John. Let's see the chaos. Actually, what's really for the students, what's really interesting, if you see John's and then you see Ian Duke's, everything is in a box and organised, but you'll make your own judgment from John's.
Put my camera down a little bit so you can have a little look around. I mean, but bear in mind, this is doubling up for my proper workshop with all the lawnmowers and all that kind of stuff in. But it's nice to have this in here so that when you get annoyed with things, crack all balls around and so.
Wow, incredible.
Airplanes and fish tanks and lots and lots and lots of stuff. There's a paramotor in the background there, behind the pool table.
You'll have to get
Laser cutter
you'll have to
over
get
there.
Ian Dukes's on as a comparison.
Ham radio up the top there.
Wow. So
Good old
everything's
fashioned stack Wi-Fi.
everything's within easy
I'm
reach.
going to get
then.
robbed now, aren't I? Daniel, we're going to put this on YouTube, and then I'm going to get burgled, I think.
Yeah, I'll drop the location pin so people know where to stop by. Help themselves.
Yeah, I've got an Arga over there for the winter. Full
Wow.
table for my friends round. Yeah. It really is my man cave. I must admit, I get told off by my wife because I never go in the house, and that's, you know, pretty much never. I go in the house to sleep and eat, and that's it. Apart from that, I live out here. But I like it that way.
That's quite good. That's brilliant. It's incredible. So there we go. So, you know, year 2 students, your mission, if you choose to accept it, build your own workshop, fill it full of valuable instruments and a bit of junk, and report back. Yeah, Nathan, go for it.
I may have to not be renting like student accommodation before I try and build anything on the top of the house.
I'm sure accommodation will be fine with it. Just get as much in as you can and see if they can stop you.
If I ask my landlord nicely, maybe he'll say yeah.
Terrific, amazing.
Nice
Cool.
window box, I think, would solve the problem. A nice window box and just extend out from
and keep going from there. Oh, cool. Nice one. Brilliant. So I think that's about all the time we've got for today. But I think this has been really useful, just talking about welcome, which is obviously upon us, and the new year starting. And I think that'll be, you know, it'll be a bit different for returning students. It'll be useful for year 1 coming in. I mean, this will be the first time, obviously. Yeah, Nathan, go for it.
Yeah, I was wondering if I can put in a shameless plug to promote the course rep scheme. Yeah, if anyone that's listening wants to join the course rep scheme, we're always open to increase the student voice across all years of every department. So yeah, if you want to go into the Essex SU website /education, you can sign up there, and yeah, it'd be great to have you.
Nice one. I also want to shout out to the societies because they are popular, they're incredible, they're friend-making machines. Like, you just go in and get, you know, you can talk to everyone and anyone about anything to do with their society. It's incredible. Do you have any societies you want to promote? You got any special interest in? I think Nathan's got one.
Yeah, I'm secretary of the Photography Society. If we're able to run this year, then yeah, feel free to join. Other than that, I don't have any vested interest in any others.
Okay, perfect, nice. Brilliant.
Is the Real Ale Society still running? I was a member of that when I was a student here. We used to pay our membership, and then at Christmas, what they would do is because you used to have the Sports Foundation would match whatever the members put in. So what that means is we could go and spend the rest of the money at Christmas on Real Ale in the student union bar. This was about 25, 30 years ago now, but is that still running, Nathan? You know, that's still up and running?
Not that I'm aware of. I think part of regulations, because you're not allowed to, you're allowed to force people to drink and things like that. So it wouldn't be.
Okay.
I think if it needs resurrecting, I think, John, I can't think of anyone better than you to resurrect it. So I think that might be your challenge for this term, to reclaim it. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much to everyone, and yeah, join us again next week for our next episode. But thanks very much. Bye, everyone.